um, Owens this morning. So now we have Todd Whitaker. He's going to do a little breakout session with us, and it's called How to Get All Teachers to Be Like the Best Teacher. So I am very honored to introduce to you all Dr. Whitaker, and so we'll let you have the floor.
Thank you, Amy Rhodes, host. I appreciate that. I like that. I thought, is that a hyphenated last name, or is the host just your role here on this?
Just my role for the day.
Okay, got it. You know, it's interesting. I almost had something complimentary happen at home recently. My wife told me she thought I ought to be on the TV show Biggest Loser. And then she found out it was weight loss. So anyhow, it was really actually doubly hurtful. But anyhow, no, it's a treat. I will tell you that. No, I can't tell you the story because we're recording it, right? Never mind. Okay, we're going to talk about how to get all teachers to be like your best teachers. And in my mind, that truly is the solution to education. It truly is. Because what happens is when you have one teacher that's figured it out, you're showing everybody else you've learned it is possible. It's possible in your kids, with your environment, with your budget, with your principal, with your superintendent, with your school board, with your community, with your culture, whatever it is, you've shown it's possible. And we've just got to figure out how to get everybody else to be like that. And we can do it. I guarantee we can do it. But one of the things we have to understand, and this goes along with the great principles, one of the things we have to understand is this. You have two ways to improve your schools. You only have two ways to improve your schools. You're only ever going to have two ways to improve your schools. You know the two ways to improve your schools? Hire better teachers and improve the ones you have. That's it. And when you try to do anything else, you're literally chasing your tail. We have to hire better teachers and improve the ones we have. And I know right now you're thinking we have a shortage in Kentucky. We have is it Rule 6 or something? I'm not, does it have a 6 in it?
Option 6. Option
6, but is the 6 correct? Okay, got it. Option 6, and so you have people that potentially have less training and less background, and you're doing it because there's already a limit in terms of hiring, but it's okay. We're going to work on hiring great people, and we're going to work on improving the ones we have. Let's talk about hiring great people. Okay, let's do this. How many of you, give me a Y or an N, how many of you, when you hire someone, check references? Can you give me a Y or an N? Okay. Now, what does it take to check references? Does it take intelligence? Does it take skill? Does it take ability? What does it take? Effort. Would you rather put effort into hiring or effort once they're hired? The easiest way to get a great teacher. Was I muted?
Yes. Okay, you're good.
Was I muted the whole time?
No, just for a second. You're good.
Okay. Was the second the best part of the entire presentation? Do you need me to tell the Biggest Loser joke again? Anyhow, that the easiest way to add great to your faculty is hire. That's going to be much easier than cultivating. Cultivating and changing people is very difficult. I want you to think about this. People you hire have a range of talent. Let's pretend this is the range. This is them at their peak. This is them at their bottom. It's going to be so much easier to hire people whose peak is here than here and get them up there, because they're always going to be trapped within this range, whatever it is. They're always going to be able to, so you want to hire greatness if you possibly can. So let's talk about checking references. Wendy Holbrook, Wendy, are you a principal? I was going to have you unmute.
Oh, I didn't know if I was allowed to. Yes, assistant
principal. Allowed to. Yeah, you're required. Yeah. Okay. Are you a principal?
Assistant principal.
Okay, got it. Let me see. Have you ever checked references?
I have not. No.
Okay. I need somebody who has. Can somebody who checks references, who's a principal, check references, unmute real quick?
Yes, sir.
Who is this?
This is Dana Crawford.
Who is this?
Dana Crawford.
Hey, how you doing? Dana?
Yes.
How you doing, Dana? So you check references?
Every time.
Okay. You know what's interesting, Dana? Did you know over 1/3 of the people that get hired in education, no one's ever checked a reference on?
That's terrifying.
And you know what I say? Praise the Lord, because otherwise people like me don't get jobs. But we don't want to be that person. If I have somebody who's been in 8 different schools, I'll call all 8 schools regardless of who they list. If I have somebody that's been at it's taught for 19 years in one school and they list where they student teach, I call the school where they student teach whether they list the contact person or not. because all I want is greatness. If you've read What Great Principals Do Differently, I talk about superstars, backbones, and mediocres, and all I want is superstars. Okay. So Dana, I got a question for you here. What would you guess? And people can add in the chat box if you want to look at there and get a little cheat sheet if the questions are ever challenging. What would you guess the number one question people ask when they check references in education or any other profession? What do they ask, Dana? What's the most common question they ask?
I can tell you the question I know I always ask. I always ask, are they teachable?
Okay. In the chat box, you might look at some answers there as far as the number one question, most likely question people ask. Tara got it. Herbert got it. Kate, what is it?
Would you rehire this person?
Would you hire him again? What percent of the time do you think the answer is yes, Dana?
Probably less than more if the person's not there anymore.
Okay. What do you all think the parents saying? Oh, it looks like Michael's probably got a pretty good guess there. About 99% of the time, we've said people say yes. That doesn't mean everyone, but most of the time people say yes. Would you hire him again? If they posted a weird YouTube clip of them doing something horrific with a turtle, it may have made that cutoff. I didn't know if you all knew this or not. So if I say, would you hire him again? And somebody says yes, Dana, does that tell me very much if in general, 80 to 90% of the time they say yes? Does that tell me much about that person?
I feel like my answers are not the answers of everyone else, because just because they would hire them again, I know in my own experiences that I can check a reference and some person may say, yes, I would hire them again. But in reality, they probably wouldn't really hire them again. It depends on why that person left.
Right. So in general, are they likely to say, yes, I'd hire them again?
Yes.
Okay. And what's interesting is the problem is that is the reference you're checking, and they are saying this. So what happens is we've got to come up with better questions when we check a reference. So Dana, if I say, would you hire him again? If you're a random person, you're not Dana, you're a random person, you're likely to say, yes, I'd hire him again. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Then here's my next question. Would you recruit him? Is that a different question than would you hire him again?
Absolutely.
Is that a completely different question than would you hire him again?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Dana, we're going to pretend this is a real person. I'm really calling you. And I say, would you recruit him? You tell me yes. Guess what my next question is, Dana?
Why?
Okay. Here's where we're going to differentiate between anything you've ever heard before. I'm going to say this. I go, Dana, how many teachers do you have in your school? So you can make it up or just tell me how many teachers you have in your school.
I'm a CTE, so I only have 5.
Okay, you have 5 teachers in your school. Okay, so you have 5 teachers in your school. And you said you'd recruit them. Guess what my next question is?
Why?
Nope, we're not at why yet. You guess what my next question is? You know what it is? How many of your teachers would you recruit, Dana? So of your 5 teachers, you can lie. It's okay. We're recording this. You can do whatever you want. Of their 5 teachers, how many of them would you recruit?
3.
3. Okay. You know what that tells me? She's halfway picky. Do you see how important it is to ask this question? Because I don't want to know why till I know how picky you are. Okay. Is there anyone in here who has 30 or more teachers? Alexa, do you have 30 or more teachers? Alexa Harden, Whitney, Matt, do any of you have 30 teachers or more? 20
Brad
teachers.
Donald, you do, don't you?
Christy Lynch does.
Hey, Christy Lynch, how are you doing? Christy Lynch, are you on here?
Yeah, we do.
I am on here. Yes, I
Hey,
have.
Christy Lynch, how you doing? I like your red blazer.
Thank
okay.
you.
Christy Lynch, okay, how many, and I say to you, would you recruit them? You tell me yes. I go, how many teachers do you have? You tell me how many teachers do you have?
59.
How many?
59.
59. And I say, how many of those 59 would you recruit?
The ones I have currently?
Yes.
I would probably only recruit about half the ones I have currently. If I had a choice, I'd recruit them all. So I would want all of my, well, I would say half my staff, I would not want to recruit from
Okay, so you
anywhere.
recruit half of them. Okay.
Yes.
So that tells me she's borderline picky. Do you understand how important this is to know this right now? How many of you would only
Well,
recruit?
and it's,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's okay to be honest too. So I had a
Yeah.
staff of well over 60. I would have recruited 3 and I can name them now.
Right, exactly. But I don't
mean,
care.
yeah.
I don't care if she's honest or not because of my next question. See, their responses don't matter, except they frame. See, if I go, why would you recruit them? and they said they'd recruit 50 out of 60, their answers really don't carry any weight anyhow.
True.
If they say they recruit 6 out of 60, their answers carry tons of weight. But I'm going to keep going regardless because you're my reference. Dana, you're my reference. Kelly, Christy, you're my reference. So Christy, you said you'd recruit 30 out of 59, for example. Okay. Guess what my next question is, Christy?
I don't know. How teachable are they?
Where do they fall in the 30?
Where do they fall in the 30? Yeah.
Is it the first teacher you'd recruit, the 10th teacher you'd recruit,
Yeah.
the 20th teacher you'd recruit, or the 30th teacher you'd recruit?
That makes all the difference.
And understand, Christy, you've never been asked questions like this before, have you?
Nope, I have
And
not.
it's really hard to lie, isn't it?
It really is.
It's really hard to lie. Let's say you say they're 10th. Okay. Guess what my next question is?
I don't know.
Why aren't they first?
Oh, I
What
can tell you.
difference
Yeah,
is
that's
in
true.
first? What's the difference between them and the first? See, I'm forcing her to think like great principals already think. And I
Yes.
can't scare her. I can't scare her because I've got to make sure she thinks I'm on her team. So I'm going, I'm so sorry to ask you these questions. We've got a new superintendent and he's kind of a wiener. You know, he makes us ask these questions. He's a wiener. And she's going, I know we got his brother from a different mother and our superintendent really is a mother, if you know what I mean. But anyhow, because I cannot scare her. Now, do you understand why asking why matters? When I know how picky she is, where they fall, what this means. Here's another question. On a 1 to 10 scale, how are they on classroom management? Guess what people say all the time, 8, 9, or 10.
Yeah.
Okay. Christy, let's say you say they're a 9. Okay. I know you have 59 teachers. You say they're a 9 on classroom management. Guess what my next question is?
How many teachers in your building are a 9 or better?
How many 10s do you have?
Yeah, true.
Why aren't they a 10? What keeps them from being a 10? What's the difference between them and the 10s? Because if you said they're a 9 and I go, how many 10s do you have? And you go 2,
Mhm.
is that completely different than if you go 52?
Right.
Now the conversation, I'm so much clearer on what regard you hold for this person. Okay, does this make any sense at all?
Yes.
Give me a wire it in the chat box. How many of you, if you were checking references tomorrow, would ask different questions than you asked today?
Most definitely.
That's the difference between teaching and telling. And that's the other thing we're going to talk about here for at least a couple minutes. See, I didn't tell you anything. I taught you. We do so much telling in education, it's unbelievable. How many of y'all been told to raise your test scores? Okay. How many of y'all been holding back on that? I'm asking here, how many of you leave a little slack on the line when it comes to test scores? And you know what test scores are like? Classroom management. Everybody does the best they know how because they're selfish. The worst teacher in Kentucky, I promise, has their test scores up as high as they can get them. Because it makes them look good. It doesn't because of the students, it makes them look good. And I understand that. Guess what percent of teachers in your school would like their job better if they were better at managing their classroom? 100%. Because classroom management's selfish. But here's what I want you to think for just a second. What percent of teachers, don't put this, we're all going to reply in the chat box at the same time. So you can put it in the chat box, but don't hit return. What percent of teachers in your school would significantly like their job better if they were better at managing the classroom? Please don't put that and don't hit return yet. What percent of teachers in your school, everybody's is going to be different. There's no guess, so there's no trick on this. I just want to show the array of opinions we have. What percent of teachers in your school would significantly like their job better? You see, that's different than what would like it better. Because your best teacher wouldn't significantly make them like their job better because they're already really good at it. But what percent would significantly like their job better if they were better at classroom management? Everybody understand the question? Put it in the chat box. I'm going to count to 3 and hit return. Okay. Put it in the chat box and I haven't counted to 3 yet. I'm going to count to 3 and then I'll hit return. Hold on. I haven't even got to 1. Okay. Everybody ready? 1, 2, 3. What percent? Look at the array. There's a lot of them, aren't there? And I have a question for you. What do you think you have more ability to do? Teach your teachers how to manage their class better or teach your teachers how to raise their test scores? Which one? Manage their class. Got a question for you. If every teacher in your school was a master at classroom management, what would happen to their test scores? This you can just use your thumb, point which way they'd go up or down. Why on earth do we focus on test scores? Why on earth are we not focused on managing our classes? You know, it's really also, you all know this, pre-pandemic, you probably knew this. The biggest reason teachers leave their job, research shows, there are two biggest reasons teachers leave their jobs. They don't like their boss, meaning principal, and they have trouble managing their classroom. During the pandemic, do you know the two biggest reasons teachers left their jobs? Don't like their boss, they have trouble managing their classroom. There's been research since the pandemic. Do you know the two biggest reasons teachers leave their jobs? Don't like their boss, they have trouble managing their classroom. Got a question for you. What on earth if their boss could teach them how to manage their classroom? But it's teaching, it's not telling. See, I didn't tell you to call references doing this. I taught you a better way and you'll do it. Great principals, without exception, have faculty meetings teachers look forward to and value. Average principals, without exception, either don't have faculty meetings or people don't look forward to and value it. And you know the minimum goal of every faculty meeting? Minimum, I want teachers to be more excited about teaching tomorrow than they were today. Why do we suck the life out of people? And you want to know the best way to get them excited about teaching tomorrow? Teach them something that can improve their classroom. It's not YouTube clips, and I like YouTube clips, and it's not cupcakes, and I like frosting. It's I teach you something you can immediately implement in your classroom that will make you better. That's the single best thing you can do in a school. And the other thing is, point to this, if all your teachers were masters at classroom management, whose job would get better? Yours. And I want you to keep that in mind. One other thing I want to share on new teachers, I'm going to try to give you one thing just in classroom management, one thing real quick here, because that's all the time we have. One other thing on new teachers. Do your new teachers get assigned mentors? Give me a Y or an N. And I'm not being silly. I just don't know. Different states have different things. Different districts have. Okay, yes. Okay. In Kentucky, how are mentors typically assigned? Typically, I didn't say your school, you're the exception. Typically, how are mentors assigned? Does anybody know? You want to know how they're typically assigned? Convenience. Who has the same class, who has the same grade level, who has the same subject area, whose hallways there, plan times there, same gender, same race, same sex, they both coach or don't coach, convenience. And I want you to be aware of something. When I assign a mentor, what am I telling the new teacher I hope they become at the pinnacle of their career? I'm hoping they become the mentor. If you want all your teachers to become like your best teachers, who has to be the mentors? The best teachers. I've never going to write a book that says how to get all your teachers to become like the average teachers. Everyone has that book. We're trying to get out of that dynamic. Does this make sense? Okay, classroom management. I'm going to tell you one. I got one thing. I got 5 minutes here. We'll see if we can do it or not. And I don't know. I was in a phenomenal, great teacher's classroom a couple of years ago. And I teach people all of this stuff all the time. If you come to a whole day with me, I teach you 20 things you can teach your teachers at 20 different faculty meetings that will make a difference. But so I might repeat this one, but it's the concept that's important to keep in mind. So I apologize if you've heard it before. It's a simple one I can share. I get hired and I go in schools and I work with individual people all the time. I'll go in all 95 teachers' classrooms in the school. And I go in and it's just an instinctual thing. I teach them, you could stand over here and say this instead of stand over here and say this, and this will be different and it'll improve whatever. And I don't document, I don't write it down. It's non-judgmental, non-evaluative. Because if they think I'm being judgmental, they're going to be apprehensive, disclose things they struggle with. But if not, they're going to disclose because then I'm free help. Okay. So anyhow, I was in a school and I went in one teacher's classroom. She'd been teaching 3 weeks. She was 22. She had 34 kids in her class, 100% free and reduced lunch population. And she was the single best classroom manager in the school. If you have 95 teachers in a school and a new teacher has the hardest class, the biggest class, and she's been teaching 3 weeks, she's the best classroom manager in the school. What does that tell you about that teacher? She's gifted. She has gifts. And when you find someone who has gifts, do you know what you do? You steal every idea from them because then you don't have to think of them yourself. I came back and I spent another day with her, a whole day just to steal ideas because then I thought I can present it and pretend it's my idea and people will think I'm smart. So anyhow, I went back and I spent a day with her and it's phenomenal. And I go, what else do you got? She goes, what do you mean? I go, what else do you have that you haven't used yet? I go, you're the best classroom manager in the school. You've been teaching 3 weeks. You have the hardest class in the school, the biggest class in the school. Come on, what else do you have? She goes, I think I could get any kid to behave if I could have a 30-second private conversation with them. My challenge is, how do I have a private conversation with 33 other kids watching? And what I'd really like to do is talk to the kid out in the hallway. But how do I get the kid out in the hallway without it being a bigger disruption than the disrupting he was doing? How many have at least one kid in school? If you said, could I talk to you out in the hallway? The kid would pitch a fit and the teacher's going, I wish I'd have just left him in class. Okay. So Matt Pollock, can you unmute, please?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Matt here's trouble, as you can tell. Matt put out the cigarette. Matt, I don't care if it's a jewel. Anyhow, do you see if I said, Matt, could I talk to you out in the hallway? There's a chance he'd pitch a fit and I wish I just left him in class. So the teacher told me, instead of that, what I do is I go to my desk and I get a blank sealed envelope, and that's what I use. And I said, what? I don't understand. She goes, let me show you. She went and got an envelope. She goes, it's a legal sized envelope. That's the longer ones. It's the legal sized envelope. They have 2 pieces of paper. They're folded up and sealed and there's nothing on it. I said, so they're a legal sized envelope with 2 pieces of paper. It's folded up and sealed and nothing on it. Give me a wire and in. How many of you think this teacher may have put some thought into this? How many think this teacher probably put more thought into this than the average teacher puts into buying their last car, and now they can't get a new car and they're ticked? Okay, and I said, I don't understand. I go, why is it a legal envelope? Why does it have 2 pieces of paper? She goes, well, if I use the small letter envelopes and it has 1 piece of paper, my fear is the kids won't take it serious. But if I use a legal envelope and it has 2 pieces of paper, the kids think it's an official government document. I go, why is it sealed? And she goes, that way they don't know the pages are blank. I go, why don't you put anything on it? And she goes, because then I can use it anytime I want to. And I said, I still don't understand. So the teacher goes up to Matt and goes, Matt, would you mind delivering this note for me? Matt, the worst kid in your school on their worst day and their worst hour and their worst minute and their worst second, what do they think about delivering a note? You might need to unmute Matt. What do they think about delivering a note? The one thing we know about Matt, he's never been muted. So anyhow, what do we know? What do they think about delivering a note?
I think that you feel like you're important.
There's no chance in the world he does not want to deliver that note. To that troublemaker, it is like the Christmas miracle to get out of class and go deliver a note. So Matt, I ask you to go to Mrs. Smith, the class right across the hallway, and deliver the note. Mrs. Smith knows, because nothing ever happens randomly in a great teacher's classroom. Mrs. Smith knows if a kid from my class brings a blank sealed envelope, and most likely it's going to be the M dog. If a kid from my class brings a blank sealed envelope, all you have to do is thank them and send them back. Matt, is that a reasonable thing to ask a buddy teacher to do?
Absolutely.
Is it more reasonable if this is all set up in advance?
Yes.
Is it more reasonable if I do the same for them?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so Matt, you go deliver Mrs. Smith the note. Mrs. Smith thanks you. Matt, you walks out in the hallway, and Matt, who's out in the hallway to greet you? And we only have one other person in the story. So if you can guess the one other person that's going to move the story along, who's out in the hallway to greet you, Matt?
My teacher.
How many of you have at least one teacher that is never going to figure this out on their own? How many of you could teach this at a faculty meeting?
Oh, yes.
And when you teach this at a faculty meeting, what's the only thing you need to make sure the office is stocked up on? Not just envelopes. What kind of envelopes?
Legal sized.
If I don't teach you precisely, there's going to be holes in your game, if this makes any sense. Okay. The other thing to keep in mind, there's 2 things. One is, I also, if possible, and the teacher, Mrs. Smith may not be able to, because Mrs. Smith's obligation is not to my student. Mrs. Smith's obligation is to her students. Just like my obligation is to Matt, not Mrs. Smith's students. But if possible, if Mrs. Smith could hang on to Matt for a minute or 2 before she sends him back out in the hallway, it lets the teacher get their sea legs underneath them, and they'll handle Matt better. Does this make any sense? How many of you are better in 1 minute than 1 second, in 2 minutes than 2 seconds? Now, sometimes she can't, but if she can, and I teach my teachers an excuse. So when they see the M dog there with an envelope, or any kid from my class, the teacher goes, oh, Matt, hang on just 1 second. I'll be right with you. I think a student in the back of the room had a question, and they walked to the back of the room. That isn't true, but Matt doesn't know that isn't true. And what they're doing is that they're letting the other teacher gather themselves. The other thing to keep in mind, and please teach your teachers this, when a kid misbehaves in a great teacher's classroom, every great teacher wants the same thing. Do you know what every great teacher wants? Prevention. They want it not to happen again. When a kid misbehaves in an ineffective teacher's classroom, do you know what they want? They want revenge. They want a public bloodletting. Great people always look out the windshield. Average people always look in the rearview mirror. Teach your teachers this, because an average teacher with Matt is going to try to get revenge in the hallway. Matt, when you go back into class, I expect you to do this. You've done this and I've done. And what happens is Matt is worse than he was out in the hallway. And the ineffective teacher says this doesn't work. It works. You just did it wrong. The great teacher gets Matt out in the hallway. They put their arm around Matt. They sidle up and they go, Matt, there's two things that I really need when we go back into class. I really need you to, and they talk about forward behavior, not backwards behavior. Does this make any sense? But if you don't teach your teachers how to do this correctly, then the envelope thing is never going to work for them. Does this make any sense? How many of you have teachers that if you taught them this at the January faculty meeting, potentially they'd be more excited about teaching tomorrow than they were today? Because they have a new thing. And it's better to teach them this in January or October than it is in August, because they don't need it in August and they need it in January. Does this make any sense? That's why I wrote the stupid book, the 10-minute in-service. Couldn't remember what it was called. Told you it was stupid. The 10-minute in-service. I really wanted to call it 5-minute in-service, but I thought nobody'd believe it. And I don't mean that that's an answer in there. It's just the things. What can I do so that in any of these situations, I bring these in? My central office friends, you always want to make sure your meetings with principals is principals are more excited about principal and tomorrow than they were today. Why do we suck the life out of principals? My principal friends, you ever gone to a meeting at central office? You want to take a letter opener and stick it in your thigh to make sure you're still alive? And that's that same way. It isn't YouTube clips. It's specific things they can take and use in their classroom immediately. That's the way to make sure faculty meetings are valued. Okay. Todd Whitaker's nobody. If I can ever help you, give me a holler. One thing is, if you ever miss a chance to deal with a negative person, don't be discouraged. You'll get another crack tomorrow. Okay. The other thing is this, the difference in the way I approach things, especially challenging people, is most people want to resolve a problem. I want to change your behavior forever. I don't have any interest in resolving a problem with a challenging person. I have an interest in changing their behavior forever. And that takes a completely different approach. So if I can ever help you, give me a holler. Thanks for what you do. I really appreciate it. And it's a treat to have a chance to connect with y'all. Thank y'all. And I just appreciate all the good looking people coming to group one. We sent the hideous ones to the other groups. So thank you so much for being a part of this. Thank you all for letting me pick on you too. Appreciate it. Thanks, Dana and Wendy and Matt and Christy and others. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's all give him some virtual appreciation for that. No matter how many times I've heard Dr. Whitaker, I've been a principal for over 10 years and I'm always encouraged and just feel so empowered. So thank you so much for that. At this time, there will be a
Hey, Amy,
yes.
I'm glad you are my host. I'm glad the other people were hosting other people. I am glad you're my host.
Well, thank you. I'll
You're
be
welcome.
here all day in room one. So if we've got like a 10-minute break. So if you've got your grid, make sure you know where your next session, where you're going. If you're staying in group one, you can just stay here and hang out. And our next presenter will be with us right at 10 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to connect.